Hello, happy Friday, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Hey Heather,
Hey,
awesome to be here.
oh, thank you, you guys. Thank you so much for coming again and spending your Friday afternoon with us. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you can't hear me or anything. Right now, I have no weather problems, and I think I have internet and power, so we should be good to go. But I'll keep my fingers crossed. But welcome to everybody. Thank you, Vicky, Sam. I see you. Eli, hello. Thor. Is it the Ezidian? Ezidian. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Finn. I'm trying to go through and see B37 Nick. Wait, I'll forget it. The Eagle, hello. And Christian, hello. Thank you so much. Digital Plus is here. Thank you. And we have so many things going on again this week in the week of generative AI. And I just figured, well, it's too hard to keep it limited to one particular topic, so we'll just open it up a little bit more today, and hopefully we can cover something that's interesting to everybody here. But thank you so much. Just want to say, please feel free to use the emojis. Let me know how everything's going, and if you can hear me, if everybody's on the same wavelength. And if make sure you share the room, let people know we're in here and what we're talking about, because that helps everybody get a little bit more aware of what's happening and know that they're going to miss out if they don't come and check out what's the latest news this week. And I'm gonna open it up a little bit very quickly here, and we'll just kind of go around. I will be rearranging the mic some. I haven't assigned any more out. And Taylor, if you help me with so we'll see what's up. But I'm going to try to get to most people. Please don't be offended if I forget to call you or if I didn't mention you. And I just want to say I'm so thrilled. Thank you all so much for like this amazing community and the growth. And it's like I'm kind of having trouble keeping up with everything. So I apologize if I told somebody that I was going to look at something or try something out or I didn't get back to you. Please don't be offended. I just can't get all this stuff done. So please hang in there, and I'm trying to get there. And let's just, feel free to drop anything in the comments of this space so that we can share that information. If you have a tool or something that you want us to like other people to be look at and check it out, just put it into the comments there if we don't have a chance to get it up onto the at the top of the space. But that way people can kind of go back and forth through the comments. Please do. Thank you all. I'm glad to see Matt and Linus. Orbify's here. Thank you. Angry Penguin. Hey, Richard. Nice to see you. Food Fight Studios and the Sauce. Digital, everybody's here. I'm going to try to, what we'll do, we might run out of mics at some point. So if you need to say something, just raise your hand. I will try to get rearrange the mics and get them to you as we can. But we'll go ahead and I just wanted to start out a little bit with, there's just so much information, so much news happening. And some of the things that I was interested in was, of course, Midjourney version 5 is quite interesting. I can't wait to see. I've been doing the ratings for the images, and it's very interesting. It looks like we're going to have a lot of fun with that. I like Leonardo's new. They have a image prompt feature, which is really, really good. You can use, instead of just image to image, you can prompt with an image. You can create a new prompt, or you can just use one of the existing prompts, and you can add more than two images to combine those things. So that's pretty cool. Orbify has some interesting things going on with the AI factories, and all the stuff that's going on with the large language models and things like that. I'm just going to hand that off to other people that can probably speak more on that. But Taylor, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, thank you, Heather, for another amazing space. I'm so glad that we're all gathered here today. If any of you notice on like the promo thumbnail that was part of this space, our little hive is growing. Like we've got more and more faces added to it. I was joking around with Heather this week, like we should make this into a GIF and show the evolution of the growth of this space, because really, like coming together on Fridays like this, It's been one of the highlights of my week, and I'm not even that deep into the tech of AI. I just love it so much, and I love the voices that are here. So I'm excited to dive into this. I'm especially excited about this Midjourney V5 stuff. I haven't played around with it yet, but if anyone has any insights to share on that, otherwise, I'm just here to listen in. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Matt, if you're available to talk now, I know that you have your ear to the ground and you know what's happening and what you've been covering on your show on YouTube and what types of questions and tools you've been seeing. If you want to speak, thank you.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, this has actually been a really exciting week, and I think there's quite a bit that we can talk about. So I'm kind of glad that this week's space we're kind of making it more of a general topic space because there's definitely been a ton of stuff happening. I mean, there's the news yesterday from the Microsoft CTO in Germany about GPT-4 coming out next week. I still am a little skeptical. I feel like maybe that might have been some misspeaking there. I'm not 100% confident with that news, but there's that we can talk about. Google's Palm E is really, really impressive with their multimodal model. The GPT-4 that is supposedly coming out real soon is going to be multimodal, meaning that it's going to deal with video, audio, text, images, all of that kind of stuff. Like you mentioned, Midjourney version 5. We haven't actually been able to get our hands on it, but we've been able to do the what do they call it? The ranking party, where we get to pick our favorites between two images and just kind of get a little bit of a demo of what to expect from Midjourney version 5. There's this new video tool coming out called Wonder Dynamics that's got everybody in the AI space going nuts about, that just looks insane, where you can take computer generated images and then replace them in videos with, if you have a video of an actual human, you could take a computer graphic video and replace the human with the computer graphic, and just some really, really exciting stuff. So much stuff that we could possibly talk about today. And yeah, I'm here for it all, and I'm excited to dig in today.
I know it's I couldn't even come up with like the top five things. There were so many things, and even this morning I said, "Forget it. We'll just have to kind of go wing it and see what happens." And Linus, did you have anything interesting or anything that's on top of your mind?
I'm in my car
Oh,
driving, so I'll be stationary rather soon. But yeah, I can just echo what everyone else said. Like, there's so much stuff going on. My mind is blown this week. I'm just like, yeah, crazy.
well, let me know when you're ready to speak. You just raise your hand. I appreciate it. I'm going to send the mics around, but from Payush, are you here from Orbify? Did you want to tell us what's happening with the factories at Orbify?
Hey everybody, hope you're all doing great. And yeah, so first of all, yeah, like Midjourney V5 is coming out, and as you guys said, it is mind blowing. It is a good reminder of how Midjourney is a leader in the space, and it is just a really good inspiration, right? They're like their model is just awesome. I'm just imagining like Midjourney V10, how it's gonna look like. But I'm really excited. I'm pretty sure they're preparing for text to 3D, and I think that's when it will really open up a lot of other opportunities. And I reckon also what Matt has mentioned about Wonder Dynamics. Sorry, guys, Wonder Studio. And you can replace basically like, and I've literally just like seen it like a couple hours ago. Um, Basically like democratizing VFX. I don't know if that's Matt what you were referring to exactly, but that is another thing that actually blew my mind. So there are a lot of cool stuff coming in. And in terms of the AI factories that we've actually released this week, I mean, just like an alpha version. In a nutshell, empowering people to create their own AI models, their own custom models, which we call factories. And they can be very specific to any kind of style, to any kind of aesthetic, and basically any kind of asset, whether gaming asset or media asset, but in a nutshell, any kind of digital content. And of course, all that thanks to Dream Booth, right? And Dream Booth has opened a lot of doors and a lot of opportunities, and will leverage this tech. Yeah, in a nutshell, we want to give people this So like Power Online, they can create their own virtual factories and monetize them. And we strongly believe that it will also open up another sort of like economy for creators. Um, yeah, so in a nutshell, but besides that, really exciting stuff going on this week. And day after day, at some point, you just like can't keep track of it. But yeah, that's why these spaces here, and once again, Heather and Taylor, great job on this. This is just amazing. And yeah, I'll give the floor to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's just so much. It's so exciting though. I really enjoy it. Digital, did you want to say something? You had a lot to talk about too.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. I mean, obviously, it's been a huge week, and it feels like the past couple of weeks and months. It feels like it's been years, but it's also like it's flown by so quickly that it's just really, really like I do understand when you talk about it's so hard to keep up with not just the projects, but even reading the news. You can't comprehend everything you're listening to and reading every single day. Like there is just so much stuff to wrap your head around that I totally understand everybody who is just so overwhelmed, and I also feel like these kind of spaces are just perfect to like sort of wrap the all the news of the week and talk about this, all the developments in just like a fun way. So thank you so much, Heather and Taylor, for organizing all of this, because if it weren't for you, I don't think I'll be here on a Friday night, and I'll probably just forget about all the news that have been happening in this space. But what I want to talk about in terms of um, the news and how it relates to Phygital. And for those people who might not know what Phygital is, we have essentially two different products and they are complementary. One is an AI workspace where we combine all the different tools under one platform that in order to access, all you need is a laptop and internet access. So we basically make sure that we combine everything that has an API and that it's available on the market, make sure that creators are able to access it in just one workspace. So for this week's news, GPT-4, super exciting. And ChatGPT, obviously, as they released their API recently, is getting into Phygital. So hopefully, oops, sorry, my plate just fell. So ChatGPT will be in Phygital very soon, so you'll be able to work with prompts. You'll be able to just ask it questions and just talk to it. Maybe you're just bored or something while you're using Phygital, or maybe waiting for your next generation to come out. So ChatGPT will be in Phygital. Midjourney, absolutely incredibly exciting, but obviously they don't have an API yet. We will have a bot in our Discord channel that you'll be able to use Midjourney, but obviously we're all waiting for Midjourney to release their API, and as soon as that's available, it will be in Phygital as well. And then I think one very important thing to highlight as well, especially given that Heather and Taylor are sort of the founders of this podcast, is the Women's Day that was on Wednesday. And definitely shout out to Heather and Taylor and all the women builders, creators, and founders. Big shout out to Linus for creating a huge mega thread of women in generative AI, and this is absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful that there's this huge non-exhaustive list of people who are involved in generative AI from all the different perspectives, and from our side. What we are doing right now is compiling and labeling all the generative AI startups that we have in our AI library to make sure that if we do have information on who the founders are, and if they do identify as women or non-binary, then we'll make sure to tag that and label that and put that in both our thread and also in the library, so you'll be actually able to search and find startups that have women in leadership in them. So that's I guess that's it for us in terms of different news. Definitely stay tuned for all the tech updates in Phygital. Make sure that you do follow us, and that if you do have something to contribute in terms of um, knowing about any women in leadership in generative AI, I will pin the tweets where you'll be able to tag people, or just let us know if you have any information available on who the founders are of some of the companies, because sometimes it might get a little tricky to find that information. So if you do have any alpha on women founders in generative AI, please do let us know. I'll pin the tweet up in the spaces here.
Thank you for mentioning that, and I do appreciate that. And that was something else, Women's Day. And Linus, that was awesome. That was just a beautiful tribute, and so many people created some beautiful, just amazing things. It was so good to see, and we do have to highlight. And I was looking at our hive, and I said, "Well, I forgot to put several women on the hive, and I apologize." And I should know better, but Ashita, thank you for coming. Chris, thank you. Sarah, Creative, can't see the whole name, but there's so many people here. Vicky, Natalia, thank you all just for coming and supporting us and making sure that we all have our voices heard. And anyone here of any, if you're non-binary, the gender, whatever, everybody is welcome here. And it's not the place. We're not worried about the other stuff right now. We're all just trying to learn. So thank you so much. And Fidgetal really has a lot of really good products, and the platform is amazing. There's just a lot of learning tools, and I encourage people to go and check it out. And the the logo challenge, I think, is that ending today, or did that end yesterday? I think I might have missed it. For the ControlNet.
That's perfectly fine. It's technically formally it is ending today, but you can always participate. You can always try out as you just mentioned, there's just so much going on that it's practically impossible. There's just 24 hours in a day. So for whoever wants to reimagine their logos or have any logos that they want to look at, especially if those are the logos of companies with women founders, that would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. So if anybody still wants to participate, please do let us know. Formally it sort of ended, but that doesn't mean that you can't log into Phygital and try it again and do whatever you want with any sort of logos and share with us. Would be super happy to look at it, give you advice, give you tips, and talk to you and sort of walk you through the process, because it might, for some people who are not very much into like node based workflow, they might not be super familiar. That's perfectly fine. Our DMs are always open. So if you want to create something, especially if you want to participate in the logo challenge and you're like, oh no, it's over, that's perfectly fine. Just DM us and we'll make sure we get you on the platform and we guide you through on how to create it.
Yeah, that's a nice opportunity there. I really want to play with that and see what I can do with my logo. So
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Um, I don't know how we should go around next. Is anybody, if whoever wants to speak next, go ahead. Phil, Vicky, AP, just go ahead and say what's on your mind and what you wanted to talk about today.
Okay,
Phil.
so I'll take this one. Awesome to hear everyone and get back together. As usual, it's always just a pleasure to get just everyone in the space at the same time. It lets us, get updated on what's everyone doing. I see people I recognize as Linus and Nick, and it's just very cool. One thing I wanted to mention, which is the same thing that Nick has been doing. I haven't been posting it, but I did a lot of ratings for the Midjourney V5, like just trying to see some sneak peeks, and yeah, it's gonna be really, really damn good. Otherwise, I think what I wanted to touch on recently was definitely the I forgot the name, of course, but I think we talked about it in the beginning of the video tool, just using basically characters mesh and being able to apply it to real world and this real life stuff. And it feels a lot like the mill. Like it's such a like the mill is a tool used by car commercials, which is like literally just a cage with cameras on it. And when you are filming that thing, you can just apply any model of car on top of the cage. So you don't have to bring an actual Porsche or an actual Lamborghini on set to film, something that could be dangerous with a very expensive car. And that tool feels like the same thing, but like for anything. And that's mind blowing as a concept. So things are going to move really damn fast. And I don't know, I think there's some questions about how to keep being, I'd say, original when everything is going to become AI infused. I think there's a lot of really good stuff. It's just, we got to wonder how to not fall into traps of replacing or perhaps like diminishing our own creativity into it. I think once we fall into our own stuff and we can use our own creativity to like keep moving forward and just having the right tools, that's all good. But when I look at like things like Kajabi, which is a online courses, a bit like Teachable, they've added other tools similar to ChatGPT or similar to Jasper AI, so like copywriting and specifically for like marketing stuff. And these things are really good, but I don't know. I'm just wondering how what's going to look like and what's going to be the net outcome in like let's say 5 years when like the common tools that everyone uses in content creation space are going to be infused with AI of like how will people differentiate themselves apart from like personal branding.
That's a good point. I honestly, yeah, that is a good point. I think that it's already so, it seems to me like it's so much already infused with a lot of things that we're doing. To me, it makes me feel more creative, honestly. And I could think I can differentiate myself from other people in the style of writing and the style of content I create. So hopefully we can just keep it kind of like that, where I have my thing and I have certain go-tos and things, but everything I approach things differently now when I look at images or read something. How could I change this? How could I make this into something that one of these tools, how can I apply it? And to me, it's just amazing because it's like I'm constantly creating something in my mind and imagining things and trying to see like what can we do with that. Oh, okay, what about the logo? So I hope that it people, I mean, you can use those, especially the writing tools and the copywriting, you can use it just to get scale up and get done faster. But I think that we should probably be able to maintain some of our autonomy and our own individuality. Go ahead, AP.
I think we
Oh
will.
yeah, no, I think I'm just excited to see what's going to happen in 5 years. Oh, I can't even imagine. But eight,
Well, I think that's the thing, yeah. Like we've seen, like we talked at the beginning about GPT-4, and like even like we're in Midjourney V5, but like let's move it forward to like GPT 10 or whatever, and what is that gonna look like? I think it's just the scale is hard to
yeah,
grasp because like if we do like I think every one of us who've used Midjourney have tried to like see V1, V2, V3, V4 just to see how far uh it came along. Like doing the same prompts that Nick would do for portraits, V1 is horrible. Like it's not
yeah,
good. And seeing today that we can have some people like because I'm also a photographer, there was an image this week that I had to literally say, "Oh, that's from my camera," because I figured people would ask the question of like, "Is that real or
yeah,
not?" I think it's an interesting problem to have. But to your point, I think because we talked, in private together about our ADHD, and like I think so far for me, the very interesting thing of being able to use AI stuff has been following the thousands of ideas I have in my head and being able to verify if it's good or not quicker than spending a day hyper focusing on an idea until I can see some glimpse of a result and be like, well, that's not
yeah.
good. So now I can iterate
No,
faster.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. It definitely it's a bonus for for us too. But then too, yeah, I think we're also all we're in a kind of a weird environment where we think about it all day, all the time. But everybody on the most people in majority of the public's not. So we have that going for us too. So it'll probably be a while before they all catch up. But I wanted to AP, go ahead. You had your hand up. Please speak.
Oh yeah, how's it
Thank
going,
you.
everybody? Yeah, somebody I wanted to shout out about, maintaining a lot of that creativity and really pushing the envelope. Coffee Vectors in the audience right there. Yeah, he or they do a lot of really amazing things with regards to like the AI tools. Really, because like if you think of them, they can do a lot of things, but there's still limitations, right? So a lot of it, like combining like the speech and then the text and visuals and like the art and all that stuff and like bringing them together, like there's still a ton of creativity to be had, and like I think a lot of areas still to be explored that haven't been explored. um so yeah, like I don't know, a lot of that stuff's really interesting to me. Like the whole idea of like maybe creating like in the future on demand like stories, right? Or like I don't know, yeah, there's just like so much like unbounded creativity that's still to be unlocked, and maybe like future areas of just like new categories of media, right, that are going to be created. Like, I don't know if anybody's seen those like meme videos with Obama, Trump, and then like Biden playing video games together. Like stuff like that is just, I don't know. It's a really interesting time for sure. But yeah, that's really all I had to say. Shout out to Coffee for always pushing the envelope on stuff. Yeah, a lot of a lot of craziness these days.
Yeah, that's really cool. One of the ways I kind of see AI developing for artists, being like a music artist myself for like 12 years now, is that I see in the future we're going to combine all these different AIs, and that's going to amplify our brand, our authenticity, and our personality. So on my end, it'd probably be like a cosmic, celestial house music artist type of brand at a very high amplified level in terms of video, graphics, and music. And even on the music side, when music AI becomes extremely generative and accurate, I'm going to be prompting things like, oh, I want a John Summit type track with a Tachami bass line and, make it 129 BPM with like shuffling hi-hats and stuff like that. And, putting that along with the whole other aesthetic that the AIs are creating, that's it. As long as you're super authentic to who you are, the AI is only going to amplify that, and it's going to be hard to copy you because you are you, right? No one else can really be better than you. um so I don't really see it too much of a problem if you're really authentically yourself. If you don't know who you are, and you're, that's okay if you don't know who you are, especially when you're young. But if you're just still developing yourself, then yeah, you can probably take inspiration. But as you grow older, I think you know who you are, and the AI is going to amplify exactly what that is. And I'm very excited for it.
That is cool if you think about it. But like the things that I don't know much about music, right? And we'll be able to combine the things that we don't know, or the things that we don't have the skill. We can put all that together instead of just trying to figure out. Well, I'll just do this part, and then maybe somebody can help me do this other, with the animation or whatever. And that's or the story writing. It's just so many different combinations that you can use it for multiple
Exactly.
different types. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It is exciting already.
Yeah, in the future, I mean, the way I see it, anyone can be an artist. Like any of my parents who have no foundation in artistry, I can literally teach them, say, what kind of art do you want? What kind of music do you like? What kind of artists do you like? Oh, yeah, the AI can kind of fuse this all together. And I think we're going to unlock a lot of previously closed off imagination and creative ideas because, they didn't have those 10,000 hours to put in the work in for those skill sets. And the AI is unlocking that on different verticals across the entire board. It's going to be a very cool time to be alive.
Yeah, I think to like combine both of your ideas, Phil and Drayson, like people are going to have the opportunity to explore their own individual interests in like a very deep way really quickly. So if I'm like interested in house music and I'm like, oh, this would be cool to make right now, if I were to want to do that, I have to go, get like a MIDI device or install some software and learn the tool. But if I could just beatbox into my mic and it automatically converts that into like a MIDI drum kit, uh, that unlocks so much opportunity, right? Like it goes with any single vertical, any single interest. Like these tools are just like really good collaborators that help you just get your ideas out quickly. So I don't think there's going to be a lack of individual personality shown because of AI tools. I think it's going to be the opposite. In fact, I think individual personalities are going to be amplified because they're now able to produce at a prolific rate content that was like otherwise going to take years to master and learn.
Yeah, and there's going to be a new standard where you have to be now a really masterful artist across the board in different verticals. Like before in the past, it was like you're just good at music. Okay, cool, that was enough. You can blow up. I mean, nowadays it's like you have to be a music and a personality and be on social media. And then the future is going to be all that plus putting that across, all these access points that the AI gives you: video, graphics, film, your music, like, and it's going to be accessible to everyone. So I think the competition is going to be a lot more fierce because the basic minimum is going to be like the standard, and now you're going to have to be innovating at extremely high levels across like all these AI tools that you have available to you.
And that's happened, like, even if you look at like YouTube went from this quantity to now like quality really matters. uh, and people care about the end product. They're not just looking for like the cool gimmicky thing anymore. uh, and AI kind of enables people to do all aspects of the work, uh, for a lot of different industries. But I still think there's room for like collaboration and stuff too, right? Like, to master these tools, to be really good at generating like Midjourney images, and to be really good at generating AI music, or working with GPT-4 or whatever the hell it's going to be in 6 months, uh, to get like really high quality content written. Like, there's going to be individuals who are really good at those things, and people are still going to collaborate. I don't think, like, yes, there's going to be a lot more people doing things by themselves and like taking on all aspects of the job. But individual creativity and collaboration, I think, is not going to go anywhere. I
Oh,
mean, we're still
100%.
humans. Like, we want to work with other humans. We don't want to just work with machines, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes what grinds the egos or the gears of some of my non-musician friends, sorry, of my producer friends, is that when I tell them, hey, I'm so excited to use AI to collaborate with people that have no background in music, because all they have to do is type in their ideas, and now they can collaborate with me for the first time. And I'm super excited, but for some people, it kind of rubs their ego the wrong way. It's like, whoa, they never did music before. Why are they entering this industry, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, and that's probably going to happen to many industries, I find it very exciting. It's like, hey, I'm going to explore this guy's mind, this guy's ideas. Like, who cares if you didn't have the skill set before? Like, it's unlocking something new to the world.
I think the utmost exciting thing, if we're looking like the 5, perhaps more 10 years or more, but I'm sure a lot of you saw the study. I forgot the name of who conducted it, but the study being able to generate images using just brain scans. They were able, a team of scientists were able to use stable diffusion as a model to, they basically showed images to a group of people, and from the interpretation of uh, brain data, they were able to redo those images pretty accurately just using data they saw from brain activity. And so I think it's going to come closer to that. It's going to be an awesome day once we can, because I think most artists and people who create stuff have a vision in our heads. We see what the end result we want it to be. We have an overall idea, mood, colors, textures, whatever. And once we get to a place where we can just think about what we want to do and see it relatively fast, I think we're going to be so. I think I know, I'm just excited, to be honest. This is going to be freaking awesome.
I was the other day. My son, he injured himself. He pulled his hamstring running track, and he was talking about when it actually happened to him, at what point in the race that he felt it. And he wants to go into something like physical therapy or some orthopedics. And I was thinking, with ControlNet, it was like, you just kind of like, what if we could see like what the muscles were doing at that moment, right at that second on the track. If they could track that and figure out how to prevent that acceleration of speed right then and there from causing that hamstring pull, because that's such a common thing right when you hit that bend and you're going to start accelerating. And he's not into, he doesn't do any AI anything. He's not into that artistic thing, but to use that in knowing the body, like you said, like the brain scans and things like that. There's an idea right there. So he may, if he wants to go into that, he might understand the mechanics, find somebody who can help, design something like that, and then you've got a new product. So it's like we can just keep piggybacking off of other things. Each new thing can kind of stimulate something else from people watching what you do or watching what other people do, and that's what I really love about this community, and how we're sitting here today and just thoughts keep popping up, and we could have businesses or products out of just this space. So thank you all. And Vicky, did you want to you didn't get a chance to speak yet, right? I'm sorry. You've been waiting for it.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
I know as soon as I go speak, I'm just going to get super excited because every week I get super excited about this space. And then you're talking about AI. I've got AI on my laptop. I'm working in a shop. I'm thinking about AI. Everyone's talking about AI. And I'm like, we are such a testing ground. And I say that when everyone's given me beta access to different things, I'm the perfect person to give testing to because I'm such a dumbass when it comes to technology. And if I can find my way through it, is a testament that I'm over 50, that if I can break it, fix it, use it, then there's a good chance everybody else that goes before me that's kind of like pre 50 is going to fly. So, yeah, I'm that test ground, but I'm absolutely loving all the different options. And now it's got to the stage where, probably like many others, I take one thing I've created in Leonardo and then I mush it into Midjourney, then I do something else with it, then I take it to Photoshop, and I'm like, people go, oh yeah, you just type a few words, it's easy. And I'm like, man, if you saw my process of like how many iterations something gets and it goes backwards and forwards, it's not like just bam and it's done kind of thing. Yeah, it's it's so exciting. I'm just super excited for what, and everyone's art is so different. You know, you do think you see the same stuff, but it doesn't last for long because people try it out and then they do their own take on it. And I want to applaud everybody that's content creators here, Nick, Matt, Linus as well. All the videos and the content you put out is like a huge resource for me to watch as much as possible along with everyone.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vicky. I love your excitement. It makes me, I mean, that you're right. Yeah, it takes a lot more than typing in some words. There's a whole lot that goes into this and just the iterations and what we're each doing with every generation that we create here. But Cassandra, did you want to speak? Thank you for coming. You've been waiting patiently.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no worries. Heather and Taylor, my goodness. And Vicky, I'm so sorry I missed the women's session this week. I was so pumped for it. And I swear to God, I'm on Zoom to Zoom to Zoom to Zoom anymore. So congrats on your session. And let's carry that forward into the coming months. I would love to see more women in this space. I am very, very active on Clubhouse. So I actually tell everybody about this space on Clubhouse. I'm waiting for everybody to get over here. And I bring your tools back to Clubhouse every single week and give little updates on what you guys are doing. So thank you, first and foremost. So a couple things that I'm working on. I am co-partnering in a mastermind with Pre-World, which is building small bite-sized businesses into transformational, basically immersive spaces in VR and AR and XR. So we're doing some sprints in the next month. I pasted it on my profile. I'm particularly in the mental health immersive space and therapy technology with hypnotherapy and different types of immersive healing spaces. So one of the things that I wanted to bring to the table is that we're building out basically prompt gardens. One of the things I really want us to, and or what I'm focused on, is really helping beginners. And if we can help people connect to your services, connect to your projects, and give them bite-sized pieces on how they can extend it to their community, it helps them understand prompt design. So what I'm doing is helping small bite-sized prompts plant, prompt, and prosper on how you can productize your genius, build a prompt, and then HTML it or what have you onto your website so that you're leading with tiny little lead magnets that are prompted geniuses, right, by you, that leads to what you're already doing. So I'm really focused on, entrepreneurs, women. How can you take your solopreneur business or your community or what have you and put a little tiny prompt at the front end of it so that people can see you're starting to lead in the AI space, and it gives them a quick bite size, quick transformation so that you're already bringing people into what you're already doing, because I find that we're playing a lot, but we're not bringing them into our ecosystems in tiny bite sized ways. So that's kind of what I'm focused on. And then, of course, want to really support you women and start getting women into these hierarchy of spaces so that we can see what others are doing. So with that said, I am complete. And congrats, everybody, for your momentum this week.
Thank you, Cassandra. That's a really great program. Thank you for explaining that and for promoting this space on Clubhouse. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Man. Oh, Joe, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just saw the space opened up. Didn't have anything in particular, just saw it was on and jumped in. And I just want to say I appreciate everyone. I follow most people here on stage, and I love learning from you. I love everything that's being shared. I truly believe that AI is an equalizer in many sense. And to Heather's point, I think um, not Heather, I'm sorry, who just spoke? Cassandra? Yes, to Cassandra's point, um, the power of the technology to help solopreneurs and startups and folks that want to build but don't have necessarily the capital to hire a team. I just truly believe that with access to AI that they got a shot. And I mean, my brother-in-law's termite company last week, he was just telling me that it was going under. And literally during dinner, I developed a whole social media plan for him and social media posts. I mean, he was totally blown away. Now he's implementing some of that and hopefully, able to revitalize his business, right? And so I think the more onboarding that we can do to entrepreneurs and people that have dreams and guiding them and utilizing these tools, I think it's just a great thing for society overall. And so I just want to express my gratitude to everyone that's doing that here. And yeah, I'm just so excited to be part of this ecosystem. I came over from Web3 and helping to bridge that gap because I think there's uh, a lot of bridging that can happen. And AI can fuel a lot of mass adoption that we want in Web3 and blockchain. And so I'm just really excited about where we're at in this point in time. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming up and speaking. Thank you so much. Um, Linus, and whenever you're ready, let me know. And I didn't want to skip anybody who had something to say along the lines of Matt. I don't know, like just even the technology or who could explain something about the meta leak to 4chan or some of this stuff, Microsoft, if the likelihood of that happening. Anybody have any thoughts on that, just to kind of clarify some of the top news before I forget?
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in. I'll give Angry Penguin the floor here in a second too, because he might be able to give some better insights than I can on this. But from what I understand about the meta leak, somebody got early access to it. They leaked it on 4chan and then essentially put it up on GitHub so that anybody can open source it and mess around with it. That's about the extent of what I know of that. AP might have some more insights on that one. I think right now the more interesting, exciting topic to me is the topic around GPT-4, right? The big news that came yesterday out of the event in Germany that GPT-4 is going to be released next week. I'm kind of curious to hear the community's thoughts on that. I think my initial impression is that I'm a little bit skeptical that it's actually going to happen next week. The ChatGPT API was just released last week, so this seems like very close to that to me, to be going and putting out GPT-4. So that seems interesting. Also, the fact that the announcement came from Microsoft and not OpenAI themselves, that's also a little bit of a red flag to me. And then the third thing is, I've only seen that one German news site talk about it. You would think if GPT-4 is coming out, all sorts of news sites in the tech world would be covering it. You'd think there'd be like articles on TechCrunch and The Verge and all of these other places that are talking about AI all the time. But so far, just that one specific news site in German is the only one that I've seen talking about it. So I'd be really, really excited if GPT-4 came out next week, but I am still very, very highly skeptical that that's actually the reality. I know that the author of that article said that Microsoft followed up after the article went live and had a correction on the article. And the correction was just correcting, a misspelled word or somebody's name or something like that. but they didn't correct the information about GPT-4 coming out next week, which I guess kind of lends some credibility to the article. But at the same time, I don't know. It just, the timing of it feels so weird to me. Like it doesn't feel like it would come this close after the ChatGPT API, and it doesn't feel like the announcement would come from Microsoft. It feels like the announcement would come from OpenAI. But yeah, I saw Angry Penguin was raising his hands there, and I'd love to hear his thoughts, and he might even know a little bit more about what's going on the Meta side of things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really appreciate that that segue there. So yeah, the LlaMA stuff, the Meta, so Meta's large language model is called LlaMA. Out of everything, I guess it makes sense, you know, LLM, make it sound like llama. But yeah, essentially what had happened there was Meta was giving out the weights. The weights are essentially the way that the computer knows how to make predictions based on the input data. So yeah, they were giving the weights out to research facilities so they could get their hands on it, play with it and stuff. And you know, if you're just giving it out like that, probably going to get leaked. Ended up getting leaked anyways. So the really interesting thing about that though is now that it's leaked and sort of, it's not open sourced, it's just like leaked, right? But since it's out there, everybody's sort of trying to optimize it and getting it to run on like very minimal, like consumer grade hardware, because most of this stuff requires, you know, very expensive enterprise grade like GPUs to run. So I've seen like some experiments where people are being able to get it to run on a Mac, right? With 4 gigabytes of VRAM. So I don't know, some gigabrain out there is going to figure out how to get this stuff working on like, you know, some really light consumer hardware. And then even that is going to have like some crazy effects of, you know, imagine like, you know, ChatGPT doesn't have to be closed source anywhere, but yeah, I don't know. It's just craziness, right? Because now like you could run like your own, I mean, it's illegal technically because it's not supposed to be open source. So yeah, that's in the pipeline. And then I know Stability is also working on their like LLM. I don't really know too much about like GPT-4 aside from like the rumors. But yeah, the LlaMA stuff to me is really interesting because yeah, people are working on optimizing it to get it down to consumer grade hardware. So yeah, that's craziness.
Yeah, and for anybody that's not super familiar with the LlaMA, basically what they're trying to do is it uses so much smaller of a data set than GPT-3, but it also, I guess, is equally, if not more accurate than GPT-3 is on a much, much smaller data set, meaning that it's not as resource intensive to run. That's kind of the big, you know, the big exciting thing about what LlaMA brings to the table is that smaller data set is not going to be as resource intensive. I'm not sure if anybody else here has any more insights around any of those things.
Billawall's on his way. He hasn't made it here yet, so I'm like, I guess nobody wanted to follow that particular to clarify that anymore. But I believe you. But that help, it does help explain it somewhat, you know, and why it's such a big deal. I what about like Discord? They're adding things, and I saw where the Slack app for ChatGPT. I don't care for Slack, but a lot of people use it, right? And that's supposed to be a pretty big deal. I think OpenAI uses Slack and something, but it just seemed interesting. But it looks like a lot of they're coming up with those types of things. And what about for the ChatGPT API? Do you think a lot of new? How do you think that's going to impact? Does anybody know? Like, will that be, people been waiting for it? So
the chat, so up until now, when people were using GPT behind the scenes with their apps, so most of the like copywriting tools and the tools that, you know, write your tweets for you or write your emails for you, or, you know, the resume writers or cover letter writers and all those things that sort of automate the writing process for you, all of those up until recently were using the GPT-3 API. That was all that was available. ChatGPT didn't have an API, so everything had to use the GPT-3 API. Last week, ChatGPT opened up the API, and, you know, I guess it's 10 times cheaper and 10 times faster, and just it's so much better than the GPT API, the GPT-3 API, that the companies that are building on top of GPT-3 can use that instead and save a ton of costs. I mean, ideally, they'll pass those cost savings on to the consumers, but realistically, most of these companies are going to use those cost savings to be more profitable. But that's kind of the big thing. So, there are some differences, right? The GPT-3 API was it was less conversational. The ChatGPT API, they call it GPT 3.5 because it was trained to be a little bit more conversational. It's got a blend between the DaVinci 3 model and then also the Code DaVinci was built into it, so it was better at doing some coding things. And that's just kind of really getting into the weeds there. But ChatGPT has a little bit extra built into it than what the original GPT-3 API did, but it's also faster and cheaper to run. So now all the apps that we're running on GPT-3 are all kind of switching over to the ChatGPT API.
That helps explain. Go ahead, AP.
Yeah, the other interesting thing with this too is like when you think of all the like enterprise integrations with ChatGPT, right? Like for instance, Slack integrating it. Like it seems like everybody's freaking integrating this thing. I saw like I think it was like Ford that's going to put it in like cars. So that's kind of crazy. But anyways, like if you think of like the startups, right? They were like, okay, we're going to make ChatGPT work in Slack, and then kind of make a wrapper. A lot of those startups essentially became like obsolete overnight, right? Because Slack's like, we're just going to integrate it like right into our own application because we own the that entire like end-to-end user flow. So I think it like really, and then also too like the Discord thing too, right? Like Discord's like, okay, we're just going to add ChatGPT into our thing, and then they're also adding in essentially Scribble diffusion where like you can draw and then like say make this drawing better. So I think that like really brings up an interesting question to startups. I mean, I'm not a startup expert or anything, but I think it brings up an interesting question of like, if you implement these toolings, like you need to have some sort of like extra added value on top of it, because what if the Slack comes in and integrates ChatGPT, or like what if Discord comes in and implements Scribble diffusion, right? Like where's the real value add, and like why would somebody use your tool over like Slack when they eventually integrate it? So yeah, really interesting like conversations happening, like really interesting thought processes going on. Yeah, a lot of craziness, right?
Is it okay if I speak to that, Heather? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay. I just wanted to add to like the whole before I jump onto that question, API or the statement. I just want to speak a bit to the GPT-3 kind of discussion that we're having, or the layup that Matt did there. Just to like refresh everyone that the original GPT-3 model was released all the way back in 2020. And the new class of models that they are running, essentially Codex and ChatGPT, is basically their next gen models, and they refer to them as 3.5. And I have a few friends that are like on the enterprise plan for OpenAI, which essentially means they paid $100,000 to get in. So it's like, I guess, some pretty solid insights. And GPT-4 has been in development for more than a year, and a lot of people have had access to like pre-release models. So I think the rumors are true. I can't really like out my source, but it's not crazy to think it will be released in March. It might be mid-April, but I don't think it will be further away than that. So everyone that's hoping for like GPT-4 to arrive soon, I think you're going to be in for a treat. But it's not going to be that transformative as GPT-3 has been, or 3.5, especially with ChatGPT. But it will be better. It will be better at a lot of things that it currently falls short at. I think that's the entire thing to look forward to. So if you're like an avid user of ChatGPT or the GPT-3 API in general, you're going to be happy to like know that they're going to tap a lot of those dead ends where we're currently kind of running into issues. And another thing I know they've been working quite hard at is kind of extending their embeddings endpoints. So if you're kind of looking around at what's happening right now, it's like everyone is building tooling that are using index, or that is using the embed endpoint, which essentially allow you to kind of like give the model short-term memory. I think we touched on this last week, where you scrape like 2,000 books, and then you can prompt those books, or you can like enter any data and you can prompt that data essentially. So they're making that even better. And then pricing wise, I think we'll just continue to see prices drop. That's kind of the end game, to make all this accessible for as cheap as possible. And multimodality, we talked about it in the opening sequence. I am not sure, from what I know and from what I've heard, that we will see a lot of multimodality in the first release of GPT-4. But I know the model in general is supposed to be multimodal, given that they now have it split up in like DALL-E 2 is its separate thing, and Codex is like its separate thing, and the ChatGPT endpoint is its separate thing. And they're working on combining all of that into like one model so that you can do everything from just one endpoint. And then back to like your question, AP, or like your statement there, I think it's a really important one. The moat that these startups that are like, another writing tool or another resume builder, whatever it might be, as soon as like the major players that are already like having huge market shares are embedding and creating their own AIs, a lot of these companies will just go, either disappear or got eaten up, or maybe they will have a small amount of people using them, but that's it. But my bigger concern is like what happens at the operating level system, and like what happens when Mac OS has GPT-3 built in, or GPT-5, or whatever we end up having, right? When every single application that I touch can do these things, but from like a root level of the system. I don't need any extra additional websites to go through. I don't need to copy and paste things 5 different times to get what I want, because I just have it in my operating system. And I've had access to Raycast AI. So Raycast is like a Spotlight competitor. Like instead of using your Spotlight on your Mac OS, you can use Raycast, and they have now AI. And it kind of rendered everything I do with GPT-3 useless. Like I don't need to go anywhere else to do any AI stuff. I just use it straight from Raycast, and it has access to my cursor and whatever text I have marked on my computer. So I think that's going to be interesting to see when root level AI will be available for everyone, just from the system, right? It's not just that you need to install an app or anything, just like Apple or Microsoft or someone else integrates directly into to the operating system. Sorry, that was a long rant, but yeah, that's my take.
No, that helped. That did help. Go ahead, AP.
Oh yeah. So I just remembered to that point too. Like this stuff's always like improving. Like Microsoft also just today released like visual ChatGPT. It's still like very much in research phase, but essentially, like take like instruct Pix2Pix. What's the other one that just came out? The my mind's blank on me, but all those like conversational models that you're thinking, like ControlNet, right? You're thinking like this would work great in like a chat interface, right? Like that stuff's already out. Like you can chat with it, like in ChatGPT, like generate Mona Lisa for me. Make it like line graph art now, right? So yeah, the acceleration of all these things and like the multimodality of it, meaning like them working together in conjunction. I think that's where things get interesting. Yeah, it's like people say the holodeck, right? Maybe that's in a couple years, but yeah, really interesting times, and thinking through this stuff is not easy at all. But yeah, craziness.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my head is blown every single week. I don't know how I'm going to keep up with this, to be honest. I'm starting to melt down. It's just so crazy. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun. But it's what still gets me though is that we're so early. Like everyone in this group, I said it last week as well. We're like so early. I have friends. They have no idea what AI is, and like they're techies, but they still have no idea. So like, I just can't wait to see what happens when the kind of floodgates are open and everyone kind of is aware of these tools. That's going to be the next thing. That's going to be like, oh wow, how are people going to react to this when more and more people get access to these tools? It's just going to be crazy.
Yeah, the visual chat GPT is really cool. I mean, it's basically you imagine chat GPT, but the ability to grab an image, throw it into the chat box, and then say, see that image right there? Remove the person in the background. And then just using normal language, it redraws the picture without that person in the background for you. Or, you upload a picture and say, hey, can you turn this into a coloring book image for me? And then it redraws that same image as a coloring book. And now you're kind of having this conversation with ChatGPT, but you're also able to use images. And when people talk about the multimodal version of GPT-4, that's kind of what I envisioned. So I thought it was interesting that the GPT-4 announcement came out right at pretty much the exact same time that this visual ChatGPT came out. And I think that's sort of like a little bit of a teaser of what we can expect when GPT-4 does go fully multimodal. I know we have ByCloud who's here listening in, and he just messaged me that he's actually been able to mess around on his own desktop with visual ChatGPT. So I don't know if he wants to come up and speak to it and talk about his experience with it a little bit, but that's something that's really, really exciting and really fresh right now.
In ByCloud, I'm trying to find you on my phone screen. I'm sorry, I can't. So if you can speak, please just request the mic so I can get it to you so you can explain how you've been using it.
Also jumping in late here, but ByCloud's freaking YouTube videos are some of the dopest on the cutting edge research out there. It's just like always amps me up and strikes this balance between like research and technical focus and like the product and actual use case focus, which is very rare to do. So freaking hats off.
100%. I want to attest to that as well.
Bill, I'm sorry, I had my self muted. But Billawal, thank you. You were able to join us. I appreciate it. And did you have anything to? Well, I know you have things to share about what's been going on this week. So,
I'll just go with the flow on this one. I just I joined at the tail end of the multimodal convo, so all about the multimodalness.
We were just kind of going over like some of the things we had talked about already, and we didn't have as much information as we would have liked for some of the conversations. So we were talking about I'm not even sure which one is more open, but what are you doing this week? What you've been adding to your workflow, and I see you were doing more with the Gen 1 and different things that you were doing, adding on different, like that continuation with ControlNet.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot more Nerf plus Gen 1 this week, and if you've seen most of the Gen 1 results, like maybe a couple things I'd say there is it's hard to get photorealistic results. It's almost like its own stylized thing, and I'm kind of excited to see because it has this like weird like Adult Swim like cartoon energy to it, like some of the generations, and so I've got a feeling somebody's gonna make some like really cool, like animated, like abstract animated aesthetic that just like, would be amazing for comedy, to be honest. But I did manage to get one decent photorealistic result. Maybe let me see if I can pin it. This is the post. So I basically took Nerf, like I'm playing with LlaMA AI. If you want like the no frills way to create a neural radiance field, which is just like this new fancy way of doing 3D scanning. Like it's absolutely phenomenal and super easy to use on mobile. They've got a web client too. You can like drag and drop a video or a zip of photos and it'll like just nerf it for you. So again, a testament to like how fast things move. Like 4 or 5 months ago, it's like, yo, you gotta like install like NVIDIA's instant NGP and need to learn how to use like Python and all this crap and like, use Colab for like posing the imagery and all this other stuff and knowing how to like debug failed poses. And now it's just like all in one and it's like absolutely fantastic. And so here, I just pinned the post. Hopefully it popped up here. There we go. The third result finally managed to start getting good photorealistic results. Obviously, the stylized ones look really nice too. Anything that I do day to night just automatically ends up looking super stylized. But if you put in the right reference image, you can definitely get something photorealistic. I've been completely unsuccessful to get anything photorealistic when you do a text prompt. So just to give context for how Gen 1 works, it's in beta right now, and they're following sort of the Midjourney like Discord type UI, probably because they don't want to build the UX around it into the Runway app just yet. So you can provide it an input video, 3 seconds in length, and then you can provide it an image or a text prompt that basically stylizes it. And so like Matt Wolf's got a really good video on this workflow as well, so you should go check that out. But yeah, that's what I've been playing around with, and I'm going to keep seeing if I can get something a little bit more photorealistic, because it's like a reskinning reality. Like, and ControlNet is definitely far more photorealistic, but like, you know, you've got that like crazy workflow, and then you can just like drag some stuff into Discord and it looks good. It's like, yo, I want that. I want the fewer clicks version, please. Thank you. So yeah, it's a little bit about what I've been up to.
I just want to jump in too and mention that I did a video about Gen 1 and I did a video about making a sort of animated video using ControlNet and image to image with Stable Diffusion. The video where I was talking about doing it with Gen 1, I explain how to do it in about 3 minutes. The video where I'm showing you how to do it with Stable Diffusion, the video is about 20 minutes, but the actual process probably took me 45 minutes. So that's really what Gen 1 does for you, is you can go and make a crazy animated, like awesome video, and it's literally drag this video in, drag this image in, process, and just wait. Where if you're trying to do it through Stable Diffusion, you have to go and take every single frame of a video and then have every single frame of that video processed through Stable Diffusion, and then you need to reassemble all of those frames, and Gen 1 just takes all of those steps out of it.
That puts it into context for sure. Because I still haven't, Marcus, I still have not put Stable Diffusion on my desktop, and I'm avoiding that because I just really don't. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to stop whatever I'm doing. It's easier these other GUIs. Um, sticking with that. um, I you generator man, you had requested the mic a while back. Did you want to say something?
Hey, Heather, thanks. Are you able to hear me?
It's a little bit muffled, but I can
Uh,
hear you.
yeah, my mic is not working super well. Sorry about that. I just
No problem.
wanted to say something about, like, you guys made some really great points about how uh, AI, we can use this as a new tool for creating art throughout the different media, like we're talking about multimodal AI. But maybe there's something else, right? Like, tools are not the only things that change in art. Something else that changes is also medium. So what if instead of the model being the tool, the model itself is the medium? Like if we go back to where this started, sort of like GPT-3, when we had like zero shot capabilities first emerging. The first way that we got to see GPT-3 was in AI Dungeon, right? And they sort of had this idea where you could create a world for people to adventure in, like sort of from a RPG perspective. But like I imagine like a future where people do this in a multimodal way, right? Like there are creators who create like a visual aesthetic and like a storyline and a music and so on. And the output itself is a generative model, and people like come and use that model to create their own adventures in that world. So have you considered that that is also something that might happen?
Well, thank you so much for the question. And I apologize because it was a little difficult and everybody didn't get a chance to hear you completely. But Billawal, did you hear his that
Yeah.
he
I
wants
could
to
summarize briefly, and I'd
thank
actually be curious to hear what folks on the stage think about this. It's like it's this interesting thing where it's definitely not zero sum, right? Like these technologies impact the way you create content, certainly, and you can use it to create, photos faster, videos faster, music faster, etc. But kind of like the question that Generator Man's asking is like, how does it evolve the consumption experience, or like just the overall experience? And one way to think about that is like, yeah, everyone, like, at least the example that's evocative for me is like everyone keeps talking about the metaverse, but you need some way to populate the metaverse with all this content, right? So like, could interactive 3D worlds that are like, massively multiplayer and like persistent, is that a new canvas? And then is generative AI a thing that you can use to populate those type of worlds, without having to learn a bunch of esoteric 3D software? And like, it's almost like this new medium that could not have possibly been like viable if not for this new technology. And then there's also like, like you could take this in other weird directions too. It's like, what about like the TikTok algorithm? And it's just like TikTok algo and generative content, like, on the fly for you as a user, and your, like interest graph, and where the content is almost dynamic and it changes to like keep you, keep your retention high, rather than like, like Matt's putting time and effort into, he talked about like thumbnails last time, right? Like making high CTR thumbnails. It takes as much time as it does to make the video itself. What if your thumbnail was dynamic and just like adjusted itself based on the user, right? Like, and Netflix does this. They make a bunch of different thumbnails, and the thumbnail you'll see will vary, drastically based on who you are as a user and your preferences and so forth. So those are some examples. I'm curious how like other folks react to that, and like how is this like generative stuff going to change like the medium itself,
Yeah, that. Oh, did somebody buy Cloud? You were able to join us. Thank you so much. I've been trying to get you the mic.
Hey guys,
Hey.
yeah, the Twitter space, I'm pretty new to it. It feels really scuffed. And yeah, it's really interesting hearing you guys talk about visual ChatGPT, especially. I just got it working. I've been working on it for like the past 3 hours. There's just a lot of, the typical version conflicts, queued up memory stuff. It's apparently if you want to run all the functionalities for Visual Chat GPT, you need like 70 GB of VRAM, which is very not good. And for you to actually, I actually got it running, so when I generate some images, it looks pretty bad. Probably the whole because it's really not puzzled. It's like a lot of different parts that's combined together. So I feel like it's kind of scuffed too, so it doesn't work properly. And it's still pretty interesting to see how everything works. Still somehow works together. So if you ask ChatGPT to run Canny Edge for you on an image, it'll just produce it, which is pretty cool. And the amount of models that you need for running visual ChatGPT is a lot too. It's taking up like something 50 gigabytes of my memory right now. It's fascinating because I'm still playing around with it. I'll update you guys later.
Thank you for that tidbit, because I wouldn't have thought about that. Thank you for explaining that part of it. Wow. Thank you so much, and you did great. I appreciate it. I know I didn't want to put you on the spot, but thank you so much for just adding your take on what's happening this week. I appreciate it. Fabian, did you want to speak? Your profile is awesome. I'm looking at work.
Thank you. uh, yeah, no, I wanted to go back on the content based on generative media because I'm an animator. I'm trying to do an animation with AI, and I'm actually not so thrilled seeing entertainment being shaped through AI, as in it's gonna be very fast and short and not much meaningful content. But what I am very hyped of in the future is seeing the sort of films, animations that are shaped by the medium of AI. So basically, creating an animation while knowing that AI is going to be in the workflow rather than just using AI to enhance the visuals, but very much into the storyline and into the way the craft is being created.
I'm looking at some of your images that you have on this. Like it looks like liquid. How did you make that? Is that from well, how did you generate those? I was just wondering if you don't mind, Fabian.
I'm not sure which one
It's
you're referring to, but I
like 2
mainly.
days ago. There's all the. It looks like liquid metal and glitchy screen.
Oh yeah, no, that's the new DALI experimental.
Oh, okay.
But
Thank you. Okay, now I'll put that in the comments. I was just I'm like, I haven't seen that before. It looked very interesting. Thank you so much. I appreciate you explaining. Thank you.
no problem.
Did anybody? I don't want to leave anybody out right now. And if anybody, please, thank you everybody who's joined us since we started. And please feel free to request the mic. I'll try to get it to you. And we were just kind of having an open discussion on everything that's been happening this week. So, Rob, I see you there. Hey, and some of my friends that we go back and forth all day, every day. Marcos, Rob, Richard. We have so many different things. The Nana, I see a ton of people here. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and I appreciate you spending this time with us. And I don't want to like stifle the conversation. So if anybody has something they wanted to talk about, please feel free. You don't have to raise your hand, or else, this just, yeah, go ahead, Linus. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Bill while there, like, how far out do you think, like, personalized? Well, let's say this. So at some point, a lot of the things that we're looking at online or that we're consuming in terms of content will be personalized in one way or another, more than it is today. Algorithms will just be like looking like Morse code when we compare like 5-10 years from now. But let's start with baby steps. So some of the things that you touched on is like, what if thumbnails are automatically generated based on the preferences that I have, so that YouTube, for example, knows that I'm more likely to engage with content if the thumbnails look in this particular way for me. And how far out do we think stuff like this is? Because I think that's a really good implementation of these generative models, especially if we're looking at scale and also like sizes, because like we could like do thumbnails pretty easily, like en masse for very low cost. Yeah, so what do we think? Like a year, 2 years? I would love to hear people's thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's such a good question. I'd be speculating. I don't know. I think like within the year we'll start seeing this stuff. Like there needs to be this threshold of where like the cost of generation goes down. And honestly, with things like ControlNet already, like, generation gets faster. And so I see this totally, it's going to happen within the next year. We'll start seeing inklings of it. And then the level of customization will just keep getting deeper and richer, right? Like, I keep thinking about, I had this opportunity to do like a fireside chat at Canva earlier this week. And we had this like fascinating conversation about like sort of what is the equivalent of like the document object model for this type of content, where like, or for 3D people, like there's this notion of a scene graph where you can say, like, even when you write a blog, right? Here are the headlines, here's the subheadings, here's the body. I want an image of this type here. And like, and the same thing in a 3D world, you can start defining a scene like, here's the world, here's the landscape, here's some of the sets, here's some characters, here's some properties and constraints on all the entities in that world. And once we start like defining content at this like higher level of abstraction, it almost reminds me of the conversation we were having last time. I think it'll get super, super interesting, like very quickly. And so I think like simple things like thumbnails, which are like all manual, like, I mean, like, you're already seeing this. I think like Matt mentioned this a little bit last time or the week before that about like where you can record like a sales video, but like a certain segment of that sales video is like customized to just say the name of the person. And you just do that like en masse. And right now, like, VaynerMedia and all these folks talk about, hey, we make 10,000 versions of the same creative and run it on Facebook, kind of emulating this type of, sort of thing in a more manual fashion. I think it's going to like be wild for advertising, certainly. And then, yeah, like responsive content, like I want this to be in Canva, right? Like you make the thing once and then it just like works for vertical, horizontal, for freaking like carousel posts on, like freaking, LinkedIn or whatever the hell. And so that sort of like responsive content and generative AI is almost a match made in heaven. So yeah, just to wrap up with your original question, I'd say in the next year we'll start seeing all this stuff permeating, like things we know already. And then holy crap, who knows? Maybe it'll be 2 months from now. Like all bets are off.
Yeah, I was apparently doing the internal rounds over at Canva yesterday because of my post with Microsoft Designer. I have a few friends working in product there, and apparently they had been debating whether or not my tweet had any merit to it. But I must say, like, Microsoft Designer is an interesting piece of software, and Microsoft has obviously been working on this for quite some time, and it solves some of the things that you're addressing. Like, you're making a creative once, but then you can like just pick and choose for what output you want it to be, and the AI kind of sorts the rest for you. It's pretty fucking amazing what you can do with that. And then in terms of these getting stuff automated on the fly, I don't know yet if we will see diffusion models, or if we're gonna go back to GANs. I'm seeing some pretty amazing
Hands are
stuff.
back, baby.
Yeah, Giga GAN. What beats me is the time to generate, right? So you can make 512 pixel in fraction of a second, one tenth of a second. So we're almost at real time. That's fucking cool. Yeah, I'm super excited about this. I can't sleep because I'm just seeing all these things, and I'm just oh shit, mine is going in 200.
You know
Yeah,
what's interesting? Oh, sorry, you can go
go
first.
for it, Bike Club.
Okay. What's interesting is that I have a very nice friend that I look up to, and he's a very professional movie production, was it VFX studio company, and he always says that diffusion is overrated and GAN is what's really good at creating images that's actually really believable, especially in the VFX media. And yeah, he's actually been using GAN a lot more in his workflow than diffusion, because diffusion has these kind of inconsistencies where when you're generating a phase, it just doesn't work as well. And when GAN generates it, it's so much realistic. I don't know if you guys have visited this person does not exist.com. That was probably when GAN just started to take off. And then well, we do have diffusion that are good right now, like the whole LoRa thing, the model merging, block merging, that makes super realistic diffusion. But I feel like diffusion came out and then it actually somehow worked, and then people just were like, oh, it's so hyped, and then they just switched to diffusion because there's so much more to explore. Or there's also the reason where it's easier for you to make an academic paper because it's something new. Again, was at that stage of a very complicated architecture where people would probably need to dig into a lot of older research papers to be able to construct something new. They were digging into the latent space a lot, and there was these small tweaks where people just change and can make so much better results. And now it's great to see GAN being scaled up. I don't know if you guys know Goran. He was a strong believer of GAN, and he made some pretty funny and interesting tweets before. And yeah, those are the good times where his predictions actually came true. So
I'm curious if somebody here can, just for anybody in the audience, me included, I don't totally know. I know how the diffusion models work. I am not super familiar with exactly how the GAN models work, and I'm wondering if anybody could give a sort of explain it like I'm five definition of how a GAN model works.
I can do it. It's a lot more basic than diffusion. It's basically you have two models. One is trying to draw as best as it can, and the other is it's like the critic and artist paradigm, where the critic criticize how bad the artist draws, and then that loss is used to generate better images. So that's the whole paradigm, kind of. Maybe someone can elaborate more.
Yeah, so like the
I
diffusion
think
model, it's like an artist looking at a bunch of the paintings and then learning how they're making them, and then eventually adding colors and shapes to it to make it look like the ones they saw before. Whereas if you take the GAN, it's like you have two artists that are playing a game together, and then one tries to make something new that looks like something they saw before, and the other one's trying to guess which one's real, which one's fake. Um, so yeah, it's like playing that game and trying to make one that's better than the one they saw before. But yeah, when it comes to GANs, it's really interesting because if you think of the upscaling stuff as well, you have GFP GAN, which is really good for fixing faces, right? And then also real ESR GAN that does the really good upscaling. That stuff is way better than some of the upscaling that diffusion models have to offer. So yeah, that's a really interesting thing that you just said there. And then like the whole like the GigaGAN that just came out, everybody's looking right now at diffusion models, and then I think it's Adobe Research that came out and they're like, hey, you guys should be looking at GANs, and then we did it like near real time. Yeah, that stuff's really interesting because like the biggest barrier right now is definitely like compute, right? Like if you're doing a startup that does trying to do like image generation or something, like you can spend a lot of money really fast if you're, using these like A4000 GPUs, or, you're relying on like API credits. So yeah, really interesting like paradigm shift that potentially is on the horizon. Or not really paradigm shift, but just a change in how people are doing things.
Do we have Kyber here today? No.
No, he's not here.
No.
I gotta find him.
Yeah. Well, I think that what's interesting with the GANs again, like someone said it, like we have two models battling each other. It's like you can see it as a painter and a discriminator. Like they're just going about, and the speed is insane. And the speed is important because, like, if you're doing video, for example, and you're generating tons of images, we're looking at like at least 24 frames per second or higher. Then like diffusion models are really expensive. So it would be interesting to see all these like text to video and see them use GANs instead. I think there's like two things now in the GAN land. It's like the Style GAN T that came out in January from NVIDIA AI, and then obviously GigaGAN that came out like yesterday that are from Adobe. I think so. It's really going to be interesting to see kind of more models coming out that like brings GAN back into the hype, especially now that like all the diffusion models have kind of opened up the floor. Yeah, that's my addition to this.
Yeah, I was really involved in like the upscaling and interpolating community. I know some people don't like those kind of stuff, but they have some pretty cool usage where they can implement NCNN or TensorRT to make like the whole upscaling or interpolation process in like a very fast speed. Some can even run up to like 200 frames per second if you run it at like a 4090. It's amazing how good GAN can be and how much GAN has already integrated into like the optimization section, where the fusion probably still takes like a whole 7 seconds to upscale one single image, which is not really worth it.
Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah, I really appreciate the breakdown. That definitely helped clarify a bit. Now, I actually want to sort of bring the discussion back a little bit to what we were talking about with the the idea that maybe on something like YouTube, they'll be constantly swapping out different images to try to optimize for the existing viewer. And I think an interesting point there is that technology's already been around for quite a while inside of like advertising, right? At least in the sense where I can go and upload like 10 thumbnails into like my Google Ads account or my Facebook Ads account, and I can add 10 titles or headlines to those ads, and it will constantly optimize, and it will be showing different versions to different people based on their tendencies and their their tendency to click and the images that they tend to click on. That's already existed inside of Facebook and Google and all that. So I don't see it being too far off in the future that why can't some of us that are making YouTube videos and just trying to get organic reach do similar things? So I think, at least from that perspective of uploading a handful of thumbnails or a handful of thumbnails and titles and letting YouTube sort of split test them and optimize them and use the right combination for specific people, I don't think that's too far off at all. Now, the other side of it, where it's actually generating stuff for us that it thinks people will click on, that might be a little bit further in the future. I'm not, I couldn't even predict how far off that is.
And by that, do you mean 2 months versus 1 year, or?
Well, I mean, with YouTube right now, right? Like with YouTube, I can go and run, well, not necessarily YouTube. Let's say Google Display Network ads. I can go and upload 10 different images right now. I can add 10 different headlines or subject lines for that image. And Google right now will try to put the best combination of image plus title, subject line in front of people to try to get that click to that ad. So that already exists. Google's already doing that. So I don't know. It might not be to Google's benefit to put that organically in the YouTube algorithm because they want people to click on the ads versus the organic videos. I don't know, but the technology exists. And I feel like if YouTube wanted to turn that on today, it's already there. They could turn that on. I just, I don't know, the sort of economical implications for YouTube around doing that. I think that's probably the bigger question for them.
I would hope that the generative part actually comes sooner than the kind of A/B split testing, just because it's so much cooler. But I'm just looking at some of your videos now, Matt, and like imagine like you have 124,000 views on a video that you posted 9 days ago. I don't know how many impressions you had on that for people to actually go and then click it, but I can imagine there is like some kind of the conversion rate from like seeing your thumbnail to actually clicking and watching the whole video. And if YouTube could generate 50,000 thumbnails, and they have all the transcript data from your video, and they have all the keyframes, they have all the frames from your video, and they know the context, and like you can imagine how they could potentially like double or even quadruple the rate, like the conversion rate that you're having from an impression to an actual viewing of your videos, and then extrapolate that to the whole scale of YouTube. I think it's very plausible that some of the things that YouTube is working on is stuff like this because they know the thumbnails matters, right? So I would fucking excited if they, sorry for swearing, but like for this to actually be real pretty soon. It will help a lot of creators, and not just YouTube, right? Like there's so many places where this could be beneficial. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that is so much more exciting. I would love to see something like that, and I hope that's in the works. And like ByCloud was saying, I think right now the question is compute power and a question of the economics behind it. Really, I also noticed that Builder of Stoke is joined the audience, who I believe is from Kyber. So ByCloud was asking about Kyber earlier, and maybe that's one that we can pull up on stage and have some conversations with as well. But yeah, to Linus, I think you're spot on. I would love to see that. The A/B split test stuff, I mean, it's been around in the advertising world forever now, and it doesn't excite me that much, but that ability is already there. I want to see the generative stuff. That's what's really cool to me.
Yeah, agreed.
Stoke Builders.
So I think I want to, Stoke Builders take on GANs.
Well, I think he has some meetings, and I don't think he can come to the mic just yet. So, I'm sure as soon as he finishes up, he would love to. So go ahead but yeah, he knows. I've been DMing him because he could definitely help out with some of that. So please feel free to whatever in between there. I don't want to like take over the conversation because I appreciate learning all this from you guys. Thank you so much. Go ahead, please.
So I think another really good conversation while we're waiting is I'm curious who's seen the recent video from Wonder Dynamics and what they just put out yesterday, where they kind of had this preview of this, computer graphics. Like, to me, what they're putting out is going to change visual effects forever, right? Somebody can record the examples they gave was somebody running down the street, right? And then they took a computer generated graphic that a designer made. It wasn't designed with AI. An actual designer made the graphic. And then they replaced the human inside of the video with like a robot running down the street instead of the human. And the robot modeled the exact motion of the person running down the street. It sort of mapped out the skeletal motion of the person running down the street, and then applied that skeletal motion to the robot running down the street and replaced the human running. And the first time I looked at it, I thought, this is a scam. This isn't real. This is going to be like a fake technology. But then when I started digging into it, I was like, I actually think this is legit. I mean, Steven Spielberg's behind it. One of the guys behind the Marvel movies is in on it. The main actor from Ready Player One is the co-founder of it. And so like there's some pretty reputable people on board, and Epic Games is on board as an investor, and I think it was Samsung is on board as an investor. So the more I dug in, the more I'm like, this is actually something that's really legit. And in my opinion, it's something that's going to, completely democratize visual effects for creators. And as somebody who does YouTube videos, this excites the hell out of me because I'm just imagining all the fun videos I can make with this. So I'm curious what other people up here on the panel are thinking of it, and if they've seen it yet, and some of their thoughts around it.
I'll just say I want to believe, but remember Magic Leap? Let me just let that
No,
settle.
don't do that. Don't do that. This is not the same ballpark, man. Like Magic Leap.
Yo. Okay, hear me out though. Just for a second. It's like, okay, I remember seeing the magic. Okay, so I want this to be real. I think all the building blocks. First, the non-jaded take. I think all the building blocks from like full body pose estimation to in painting to like inferring like image-based lighting for like all the primitives are there. And if they're putting it together and productionizing it so it's actually that awesome, oh my God, you're like, we don't need to jump between Blender and After Effects or Nuke or whatever and like do all this crazy stuff. But at the same time, I had the exact initial reaction Matt did, which is like, if we think back to Magic Leap, they had this awesome video, which was like a freaking whale, just like, doing a huge splash in a freaking like, school, like freaking auditorium. And it was backed by all the big names and then, nothing. So I don't know. I want to believe Q X-Files music. I would love it if this is real, but I need to see a real demo before I start believing like that end to end is actually possible.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But it's still not the same league. Okay, let's put it this way though. My take on this is that I think full body pose has been around forever. Dynamic lighting has been around forever. Like it's literally on our phones, right? You can almost do it in real time on your phone doing video. I think the thing that kind of I'm still a bit skeptical about is how they remove the object. So we obviously have like object removal. It works, but if they're doing this, how fast is the render times? Like if I'm dropping something onto that artboard, am I gonna have to wait for a week, or is it gonna be like 2 seconds, 10 minutes? Like I'm interested to see, because I think like you're saying, the components are there, the building blocks are there, and what they're doing is kind of like converging everything. And I think this is something that we're gonna have a hard time grasping in the next few years, next few months, next few weeks. The convergence of technologies that have been building up for the past 10 years, it's just everything is just going to collide together in this in the era that we're in right now. So but I'm still kind of like on the fence of like how fast this will be. Will it work? I think so, but how fast will it be? That's my main point.
The other thing that's sort of interesting about it as well is that it looks like it's going to be browser based. So, is it going to be using their cloud GPUs? Are we going to be able to process this stuff really, really fast because it's using their GPUs? That's something as well. But I think the one thing that I look at it and go, okay, maybe there's some legitimacy, because my first reaction is like, all right, this is not real, or they're just making this video to raise funds right now, but we're still 2 years away from seeing anything, right? That was kind of my first impression of it. But the fact that the actual names that are behind it that are like pretty reputable names, like they're putting their reputation on the line there. And I know that's not saying a whole lot. That still could be 2 years out. But like Linus said, I mean, all of the technology exists. It's just pulling all those technologies together and making them work together. And my first thought when I looked at it was like, how am I gonna, I'm looking at something like Gen 1 and what that's generating. How did we go from what Gen 1 can create to what this thing is creating? Like, holy shit, that is a big leap. And that was kind of my first thought when looking at it. But then I realized, all right, it's not actually creating these like robots on screen or the alien that you see on screen and generating that with AI. That's actually something that's still being created by a human. That's something that somebody is still doing all of the modeling on and creating that thing by hand. And then they're using the technology to remove the backgrounds, to view the sort of skeleton and the movements of the people, and to do the generative lighting and all of that kind of stuff. All of that technology exists, and then a human still has to create that sort of 3D model that's being superimposed into the video. And if that 3D model was being created by AI, I'd be like, all right, this is bullshit. This is not even close. There's no way that this is reality. But because those models are actually being constructed by somebody in Blender and not by AI, that sort of lends me to believe, like, okay, yeah, this checks out. All the rest of those technologies exist.
I think the cloud rendering point is a really interesting one too. It's like it's I'm also curious, what is the 3D engine underpinning it? Like, is this like a wrapper around Unity or Unreal, or are they building like a custom 3D engine, or maybe it'll be NVIDIA Omniverse? I don't know. But like, there's like there's some really cool primitives there. And Matt, to your point, like, all the magic is always when you blend classical techniques with the AI stuff, right? It doesn't have to be all AI. And yeah, like computer graphics has been around for a while. And I mean, there's a bunch of non like ML based computer vision stuff that's been super useful in all sorts of productions. So yeah, I could be excited about it. So I'm stoked. One more point for skepticism, just since I'm seem to be taking the counter argument on this one, is like, I have yet to see a good multi-track cloud-based video editor be a thing, right? Like, we're just talking about, I just want to edit like 4 streams of HD video, and I want to do this in like a browser. I want it to be cloud-based. Like, even if you look at something like Runway ML, you have to like export out your comps as clips. You got to bake down your comps, and then you can edit it in a new composition, right? But the very simple task of, I just want like the equivalent of pre-comps in After Effects in this sort of cloud-based editor thing has been elusive, right? Now, one way to change that, it could be you're effectively using, to your point about cloud rendering, it could just be you're using a machine in the cloud, right? Like, and that machine, it's like you've got a thin client and you're just like using compute that's sitting up there, and you're essentially running like something on desktop, but just streaming the pixels over. Something like that could be really, really powerful. And I mean, that's what VFX studios do, right? Like, everyone's like remoting into these machines that are on premise somewhere for like data security purposes. And seeing that stuff come out into the wild will be awesome, because like then you can start adding in, like, if it is truly cloud based and awesome, right? Like, it could be like Figma, where it's like totally like collaborative and all this other stuff too. So but yet we haven't really seen a good multi-track cloud-based video editing solution out there. And so that's another reason for the skepticism. But hell, people can do wild things, and so maybe I shouldn't be that skeptical.
I think I just want to believe too much. I want it to be true, but I feel like the reality of it is it's probably not as close to us being able to actually get our hands on it as they make it out to be on their website. That's my feeling about it.
Billwall, are you going to South by?
I am, yeah.
So maybe we should hook you up with Ty and Nicola to get like a hands-on demo, because they're going to be there as well.
Oh, I would love that. Hell yeah.
We could like pull together. We could pull together and make this happen. Like, I guess with our reach, we should be able to do something.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's see if they're like how much truth or fiction is there right now.
And you can report back to the crew once you've like had your eyes open or closed.
I'll go do some recon.
That's a good idea. Thank you so much. Thanks, Linus. Go ahead, AP.
Yeah, I have something interesting about Stable Diffusion to share. So a lot of y'all were talking about like compute and all that. So Qualcomm's been doing some work like on the research side to get Stable Diffusion running on their Snapdragon mobile devices. And so yeah, they have it running. I saw a demo earlier today, and like it does like 512 by 512 renders like pretty fast. I would say like 5 seconds to run the inference. So I'm not really sure what they did there. If it's like something that they're baking into like their new silicone, or like if it's going to be applied to like retroactive models. I'm assuming it's going to be like the future Snapdragon mobile devices. But yeah, really interesting to see when. I know Apple's doing some work on this too, but when Stable Diffusion is also able to run on like your mobile device without having to be hooked up to like a cloud GPU, like via an API or something like that, right? Like, so that's going to be really interesting too. But yeah, sorry, it's a little bit of a tangent from what y'all were talking about, but I saw that was interesting and wanted to share.
Yeah, I'm curious if people have any thoughts on what might happen at what might happen at WWDC, right? Like, there was this funny back and forth between, building off what AP just said with the prelude is like AP's point is like, freaking Apple, like Apple's ecosystem is such an amazing platform for this stuff, right? Like all their like M series chips are so incredibly powerful, and like I've got the new like like MacBook Pro like fully specced out. It's like a freaking beast. And like I've seen some comparisons of like Final Cut Pro editing like 16K, some absurd like resolution red raw footage, like compressed raw footage, and just like trouncing Adobe Premiere in every single benchmark. And it's like a freaking, like Mac Mini or something. And so like you add in like, yeah, like some sort of like serious optimization similar to what Qualcomm's been doing to get like, stable diffusion to work on a freaking Android device. Like, yeah, I'm curious if folks have any thoughts on like where the sort of the pro series of creation tools by Apple might go with this whole like generative thing. Do you think they'll do something? Is there going to be like, there's like this weird exchange between Ben Thompson, who writes Stratechery or Stratechery, depending on how you pronounce it. Really good blog, and was like, hey, I expect to see you like some cool stuff at WWDC. If not you on stage, Ahmad. And Ahmad was just like super coy about it. And so I'm curious if folks here have some speculation on what might be ahead.
Yeah, I know Robert Scoble has said that they would do something. I'm not sure if he's in the audience. If he is, if he could come up here. But he said that Apple gave like their. I might be misquoting, but I think I heard him say that Apple gave Stable Diffusion like its sort of stamp of approval, and that they're going to be working to get it on, definitely on like the iOS devices. So yeah, I don't really know what that entails. I don't really like to speculate too much, but I would imagine there's something going on there, right? And that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so I wish Robert was on this call right now, but I was having a chat with him on Discord, and he was talking about how the M chips, Apple hasn't even opened up the full power of them. Like, they're actually sort of throttled right now, and if they were to unleash the full power of what the M1 chips can do, it's the equivalent of running an NVIDIA 3080 right now. And he was saying that, Apple is getting ready to sort of unleash some really exciting stuff around there. And also he was talking about how they're about to unveil a new version of Siri, which he believes is actually going to blow, all the GPT models that are running around right now out of the water as well. So I think Apple's been a bit of a sleeper lately, but I think there's going to be some big news coming out of Apple in the coming weeks here.
I just wanted to jump in. Great topic, good discussion. I agree on all those fronts. I think Apple's definitely going to. I feel like Stable Diffusion type generative AI is going into the OS. So what I mean by that is it's going to go all the way in. It's going to go and be basically foundational infrastructure toward probably everything going forward. I mean, if you think about it, we're going to start seeing a new wave of ambient. Remember things like the ambient orb? There were like these unique objects that could sort of connect to data, yet look like they sort of belong, on your coffee table or whatnot. We're going to see a whole new dawn of AI-enabled objects. Apple's definitely going to be doing it. I think you'll see within probably 9 to 12 months, you'll see like Stable Diffusion running on like a chip or running sort of on hardware with smaller and smaller devices. Definitely see that coming. You're definitely seeing like everything that we're seeing happening and it's interesting how and why it was. This is something that we need to think about: is why did they choose art? Why did they choose art in these sort of foundations? Because they're expressive and they allow people to do mass experimentation. So not only does the population get to play, but everyone gets onboarded to how AI thinks. So the whole generation sort of grows up with AI from a creation level, accessible level at the common level, and then it's also impacting all the industries. So it's just going to be a phenomenal time. I think that you'll see Stable Diffusion going more and more toward hardware, meaning embedded, meaning that we should have prompt generation, full hologram, change my environment now. That technology exists now. It's just not on Apple's core, but it'll be on Apple's core for sure. The big question, though, is going to be how do they create a moat around it? The moat is probably going to be the dev kit. They have to create a superior dev kit that really forces a lot of development over to their side. And I would think they would also be potentially acquiring some of these larger companies along the way. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, like what would the next version of Animoji look like with generative stuff, right? Like it could get really wild.
Completely. I mean, it also makes you think of remember when Amazon came out with their Android phone? It was a flop.
Oh, the 3D ish kind of
Yeah.
Kindle
Remember
Fire
that where
thingy.
you could have
Yeah,
faux
yeah.
3D in the screen? And they had that because they had two cameras on the front of the camera, on front of the phone, looking at your eyes. And so they were adjusting sort of the optical illusion based on where your head position was and looking at the screen. So you could almost get a fake 3D coming out of your perspective. I'm sure we'll see that tech again. We're already seeing that tech where you kind of walk into you walk into what looks like a platform and then you're instantly beamed and projected somewhere else. Like they did that at CES. They had the system where the person could stand in front of the camera. That was it. The camera was filming them, but then they were projected to be actually full 3D sort of engageable, hundreds of miles away just on the internet, right? But you're starting to see that now at H&M. So H&M is using that technology in their stores. So when you walk up to the store, there looks like there's two people standing there and they're full. It looks like you can reach out there. But what's crazy now is they can get any celebrity to walk into that thing. So they can beam any celebrity, anybody into a space. And that's just one step removed from what? Having the glasses and being able to see the full avatar. And I think, yeah, this Wonder Dynamic story is amazing technology. Makes you wonder because it's almost too perfect. Gonna look at that. But this stuff is just accelerating. And this is without all major investment. Everything that we're looking at right now is largely without a ton of Silicon Valley cash. So this is without the mainstream even understanding what we're doing. So if it's amazing to us now, like everyone's going to be blown away pretty soon. And that's what you're starting to see, I think, with AI eating not only like different businesses, but it can eat every part of the vertical of the business. It can be applied at the very base of the foundation. It can be applied for the customer interaction, the modeling, the feature analytics. It's an amazing time. You should all be starting a company or just having a blast.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, right? Like that's it. Like I like that kind of like, yeah, the analogy, like anywhere in the stack and the vertical, it could be applied anywhere. And I think people need to realize that it's just like, yeah, that's it. That's so important. I think that's a very interesting take.
You sounded like Robert Scoble there for a while when he was talking about that, walking into the hologram, into the mesh, and how all these things were going to be happening with the what do you say, the 3D the hallucination of the computers and just all of that. But thank you for tying that together too. For at I never really thought about it like that, but that is something from every aspect of businesses and sectors. Period.
Yo, I see Bothik Joshi with the hat in the audience. You want to hop up and perhaps share what you've been chatting with your Pixar homies about this stuff? And while you do that, like Bothik is ex ILM research, ex Adobe research, and currently Canva research, and actually is the person that invited me over to Canva for that
If
fun
if you
talk.
could if
So
you could request, oh, good. I see he requested.
yeah, I'm sure he's got some spice to add to the mix here.
You're good. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you for pointing him out. Appreciate it. I think his mic's up. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Sorry, it's morning here in Sydney. Cool. Look, we started digging into some of the Wonder Dynamic stuff. It was pretty interesting. I think the results were remarkable. The thing that really sort of stuck out as an interesting piece of technology, like more than anything else, was the lighting and grading matching, right? So, you know, when the characters get dropped in, the lighting and the grading matching was really good. And I think what's interesting from like a research point of view is that the lighting and the grading matching is somewhat related. Like what you do is that if you can solve for one, you can solve for another, but there is some degree of manual human intervention that's required. There's some sweetening step there to really get it right, right? So if you can solve for the lighting, then you can understand what the grading is. If you can solve for the grading, you can solve for the lighting. And it'd be really interesting to see sort of more of a detailed workflow breakdown, right? I think there's still a fair bit of human in the loop here, but it'd be really interesting to see over the next few weeks sort of where exactly that is. It's going to be, I don't know, we're looking forward to seeing it.
Baltic, is there any speculation on it's like cloud based? Like, is this like, are you controlling like an instance in the cloud, and is that how that's working in the browser? Like,
I mean,
like we were just, yeah, go for it.
I mean, look, I'm totally speculating here, right? So, and if some of the Wonder Dominate folks are on this call, maybe they can weigh in a little bit. But you know, again, if it was one of those things where if I was building it, I'd probably just do this like a proxied workflow. So you've either got the processing that's happening either, you know, completely remotely, and what you're doing is that you're viewing a completely remotely graded piece of footage and it gets transmitted back to you, or you know, a solution that's commonly used in VFX is that you have like a low resolution proxy that lives on your local machine, and then the remote machine does the heavy lifting and it does all like the transforms and it does the color work and it picks those time points or whatever, but then it gets replayed locally, and those, you know, those changes are then replayed on a smaller version of the file which is appropriate for whatever device you're on, and then it gets replayed on that, and that is what you see on your local computer.
Yo, that's wild. So some sort of like WASM powerful editor in your browser, but then like all the upresing when you finally hit render is probably happening in the cloud, or proxies are being made in the cloud and then sent to your like browser, something like that.
Something like that. I mean, that's like, you know, I mean, if you look at sort of like the tooling that's available for, like, I mean, like, you know, working from home was a big thing for visual effects, right? Because during the pandemic, you know, the folks wanted to keep on making movies, right? So they needed some way of continuing that without physically coming into the studio. So a whole bunch of this infrastructure got built really, really fast. And you know, there were
and all that.
exactly right. No, that's precisely right. So building on Teradici, I mean, that was already a thing for sort of like, gosh, even sort of like, you know, 4 or 5 years, 6 years before the pandemic, studios were starting to open up locations in, um, you know, different countries because, for example, like, you know, like I'm going to pick on ILM in particular, right? But like, you know, ILM wanted to open up offices in like Vancouver and London and wherever, right? And there was a bit of a push and pull there around the requirements they got from the studio. So the studio said, okay, right, if you're going to be working with our IP, the IP needs to live centrally on some server somewhere that's audited, right? So if you got artists who are in another country who are working on this, we don't want them to actually have like direct access to the bytes, right? They should only be seeing a window. So a lot of this really sophisticated remote sort of like video streaming infrastructure was built a while ago, right? So it's, I think there's a fraction here of this technology starting to make its way out to the consumer, and a fraction of this around sort of like, you know, genuinely more firepower being available to consumers in terms of like compute and graphics firepower, right? So it's probably a combo of those two things in terms of like where the compute lives. And again, as you know, referring back to this proxy workflow, right? So you've got these small versions of the files, and what you're doing is that, you know, you don't, if you're on an iPhone, for example, you don't need a 4K version of the video to look at, right? You can have something that's maybe 640 pixels across, and you know what you want to do is that you want to get an idea of the flavor of your changes. You want to understand sort of like, okay, you know, you want to understand, is this color about right? Is this grading is about right? And a really important one here is time, right? Especially when you're editing, making sure that you got fidelity in time, because, you know, when people are editing video, I mean, like folks who have done this, like, you know, you know that getting things down to fractions of a second is correct. So if you're on a local device doing that editing, having a local version of the video that's available, even if it's small, it doesn't matter if the resolution is kind of crappy, but what you want to do is that you want to get a feel for, is this timing correct? And that, again, like I said, that proxy-based workflow is probably a fairly common one. Of course, this is all speculation, right? So without actually looking under the hood, it's hard to know exactly what's happening.
Well, thank you for humoring us with some good speculation. I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
I love speculation. I don't know if people are like, I don't like to speculate. Like, come on, it's one of the more fun things to do. Come on.
for sure. No worries.
No, thank you so
Thanks for
much.
having me, Phil.
Thank you for explaining it and simplifying such a complex topic, and also bringing in all those other variables that I wouldn't have thought of. Thank you so much. Wow. I feel like I just
Yeah, no
had a
worries.
course. Thank you. Wow. This is a great conversation. I'm so glad we were able to get together today. And I don't want to hold people too long. If anybody had something they wanted to finish up with, or any particular question, go ahead. Otherwise, it's about 5 o'clock, and I guess we did pretty good today. 2 hours, so right on the dot. If we probably, I guess we're good to go. But anybody have anything they wanted to say before we go? I really appreciate everybody coming here, everyone, and thank you so much. Look around the room and see there's all kinds of people you can follow in here that with, you learn so much about different people just from hearing a little bit about their stories and what they're working on. And it might be a lot of information on their timelines that you guys, anybody in the audience could find some value in. So please share this information. Please drop any information you have in the comments. If you're not doing it now in the chat, you can do it later, and then we'll just keep that kind of as a running record of. It helps me remember what we were talking about, because I can't transcribe these. It takes forever to transcribe these calls if they're over 2 hours. I see. Most of the apps are not working. If anybody knows how to split audio for me, I'd really appreciate.
I'll fix
Oh,
it.
thank you, Liza. I'm like, please, if I could just split it
I'll
too,
hook you
then I
up.
could put it in Decipher or something, but it's so
No,
hard.
man. I have a friend that runs Conch.ai. It's a transcription service, but it's used mainly for students. They've been around for a few years, but they actually have human augmented transcription. So it's like AI in the bottom, but then they actually have humans helping them out, making it even better. I'll get some credits
Oh,
so that we
please.
can have these
Yeah,
transcribed.
I would even pay you if I could, but it's
No
Assembly
worries. No
AI
worries.
can't. It says it exceeds the file size and Decipher and other. So like I can't get a nice little. I was putting it in Descript and then trying to kind of go through by hand and copy and paste that into another summarizer.
No. Conch is the way to go. So it's Konch.ai. So we'll
Well,
fix that for
thank you.
you.
Then you can actually see a summary of like a recap of what happened in the space, because I can't get it together. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. See, we learn a lot from these spaces, and we have all kinds of new ideas. And, if you guys have anything, comments, please put it in there. I really appreciate it. And I guess this next week, we're going to be, who knows what we'll be talking about next Friday, but we'll be back here again. And thank you all so much. Thank you for my newsletter. I appreciate it so much. I launched it last week, the first edition, and I have over 500 subscribers, and I really, really appreciate that. And I'm trying to include as much as I can from the things we learn here, and just different tools and updates and news, but it's impossible. So I appreciate all the recommendations from all of you all here, that, Matt, Linus, Billawall, Taylor, Sauce, everybody that has been promoting my work. And I want to continue to do that with all of us, so we can all just cross collaborate, cross promote, and individuals in the audience, creators, everybody, just keep sharing this information. We've been learning so much, and it's such a nice spirit of collaboration. And it's so unusual too, because normally people are kind of hiding their work, or they don't want to share how they got to that point. But it seems like it's just kind of helping us grow faster. The more we share, the more we exchange ideas. So I'm so happy that this is such a nice corner of Twitter, and I really appreciate everybody for what you do and for coming in. Let's just keep lifting each other up. Taylor, I don't know if you could talk, if you have babysitter at the moment. But if you wanted to say anything, thank you so much, everybody.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Heather, for another amazing space.
Oh,
I'm just, can you
yeah,
hear me
I can
okay
hear
or
you.
no?
The baby.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say hi. Thank you for another amazing space. I do have a
Yeah.
little one in the background, as you can hear. He's, living his best life over there. But no, this was awesome. I can't wait to see what we unpack next week. I took tons of
Oh,
notes,
thank
so
you, thank you.
we'll have to thread these
And then I'm
up.
going to be messing with Conch. And everybody make sure you watch the shows. Matt's his YouTube every day. He has, I don't know, how do you put all that stuff together, Matt? And Future Tools. And Billawall, you and you have some pretty fantastic videos there. And there's a lot of people that I'm not even saying, but there's people that are doing things every single day in this audience, and I really really appreciate it, and I think we should try to recognize each other as much as possible. But I guess we can go ahead and have a good weekend, if that's okay. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. And Linus, did you want to say something? Or Bill, go ahead.
Bye. No, I was just gonna say bye. See y'all next time. I'm sure there'll be plenty of topics, and we'll see how the GAN wars and the diffusion wars play out until then.
And you'll have some stuff
Yeah, I was
from
gonna
South by
say.
Southwest too.
I was going to say next week should be a really exciting week, especially if we see GPT-4 come out. So these spaces are one of the highlights of my week, and I'm always looking forward to them. So excited to see what comes next
Thank you
week.
so much, Matt. Thank you so much. I know it's kind of like I just thank you for helping me understand. There's no point in having an agenda. Let's just see what's going on and what we're talking about. And we had a great discussion today. Learned so much, man. Thank you so much. I can't wait either. I don't even know. Yeah, I'm just excited for. It's weird to be excited over stuff like this, but that's where we're at today. Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much for coming, Linus. Thank you everyone who spoke today, everybody on the panel, AP and Gil Billawall. Vicky was down there somewhere, and all the I can't see your name, but Batik, thank you so much. That was like, wow, thank you so much. But everybody, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you next Friday. Take care.